welcome to another video. In today's lesson we are going to make this super cozy cardi, and there is also a written pattern for this. You are going to need the written pattern for the project. I will walk you through step by step, so don't worry if you don't know how to read a pattern. You need it for adding measurements, etc. The yarn that I have used in this project is supplied by redheart.com. So if you would like to get some of this gorgeous yarn, head over to redheart.com. I will put a link in the description box for you so that you can go and check out all the pretty colours. This yarn actually comes in 12 different colours. Subscribe, as there's always tutorials coming out, and hit that thumbs up button if you like what you see. This project can also be used using a number 3 yarn for the USA, or a double knit or 8-ply yarn for us here in Australia and the UK. So let's get started on the lesson. For our supplies, we're going to need a pair of scissors. We're going to need 2 stitch markers. There's 2 different types here, or you could use scrap pieces of yarn, they will work perfectly fine. Going to need a yarn needle with a large eye. And you're going to need 2 different size crochet hooks. Both of these crochet hooks can be purchased via links in the description box of this video tutorial, and that will actually give me a little bit of pocket money so I can keep my videos free for you guys. So this one is a clover, and it is a 6mm crochet hook, which I think is a J US, and we've got a 4.5mm crochet hook, which is a 7.5 US. I am using worsted weight yarn, and what you need to have is a crochet hook one size bigger than what your yarn is recommending. So if you're using a DK yarn, which is a lightweight yarn, is a number 3 for the US, and it's a double knit or an 8-ply for us Aussies or people in the UK, I would say use a 4.5mm crochet hook, and then one that is a little bit smaller than what is recommended. The smaller crochet hook is what we use for the cuffs on the sleeves, and the larger crochet hook is what we use for the body and the edging and the sleeves. So the smaller one is just used for the cuffs. You're also going to need some yarn. The yarn that I am going to choose for this project is Red Heart Super Saver Ombre, and I'd like to say a huge thank you to Red Heart for supplying the yarn for this project. I will put a link in the description box where you can find this yarn on redheart.com. So these are quite big skeins. They are 10 ounce or 283 grams, and the yardage and meterage is quite generous as well. So they are quite big. The ombre colours change from a lighter blue through the dark back into the light. I'm also pairing it up with a solid colour in the Red Heart Super Saver, and these are 7 ounces or 198 grams, and then you've got your yardage and your meterage there as well. This size I am making is an Australian ladies size 10 or a US size 6. If you're making a larger size, I would recommend 1 ball of yarn extra per size that you go up. With the sleeves and the cuffs, I used 1.5 of these 7 ounce skeins. So if you're making a larger size, I would definitely suggest having 2. And if you're making, say, a double XL or a triple XL, I would recommend having the 3, because you do have to use it for the edging. And I used the soft white for the contrast colour and the scuba in the ombre colour. I love this yarn. So this recommends a 5.5mm crochet hook. DK yarn is a number 3. So this is a number 4. So this is a 10-ply or a worsted weight yarn. I'm going to put across the screen now the amount of yarn that I used to make my size, and like I said, it is a Australian ladies size 10 or a USA size 6. I use the 10 ounce Red Heart Super Saver Ombre yarn. I used 439 grams. So that is almost 2 balls of the Super Saver ombre. Because the ombre changes colour, we do have to do some yarn management. So I actually used 3 balls. I did have a lot of yarn left over, but to get to the right place in the yarn to start the sleeves, because I wanted it to fade from the shoulders into the sleeves and wanted it to be sort of seamless in the colour, I did have to pull out a whole heap of yarn, and I will show you this in the video when you get up to the sleeves. For the coloured version with the stripes, I used 410 grams of yarn, and that is because I did short sleeves on the striped one. I did just use up scrap yarn that I had laying around, and I used 200 grams of the light grey, 60 grams of the country blue, and 150 grams of the Windsor blue, which is the darker colour, dark blue. So that'll give you an idea on how much yarn that you need. But like I said, if you're making a bigger size, you are going to need more yarn. This project can be easily adjusted to fit most sizes. It is adjusted by the granny square that we make in the beginning. So our first thing we need to do is make a granny square. We want it as wide as your back measurement. You are going to need the written pattern for this project, and this is going to show you where to write your measurements down, because you are going to need to measure yourself. So we're going to make a granny square that is as wide as we have our back measurements. You might want it a little wider, say 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters, so that the back of your cardigan isn't super tight, and you're able to put a shirt on underneath or another layer if you want to. You can use any granny square pattern that you like. I will put a link in the description box, and also on the screen in the top right hand corner you will see a granny square video pop up if you don't know how to make a granny square. When I make my granny squares, I do 2 chains in the corner and then none in between the groups of 3 along the straight edge. But if you would like to make yours slightly differently, you may put 1 chain in between your shells, then that's perfectly fine, and that is the method that you will use throughout the pattern, and I talk about that as well. So if you're using a chain 1 in between your 3 shells, you're going to continue with that pattern when we make the remainder of the cardigan. After we've made our granny square, if I haven't told you already, what we want to do is put a stitch marker on the right side of our work. So when we make a granny square, if you're not turning at the end of each round, you're always working on the one side. So when you're working along, you've come across this way. This is the right side of your work. So just put a stitch marker. You could even just tie a piece of yarn. That's what I've done before. Just tie a piece of yarn onto this side, just so that we know when it comes up to the next part in the pattern. And if you've made a granny square that you turn at the end of each round, that's fine. That really doesn't matter, because you don't have a wrong and a right side because you've turned at the end. It's just if you've, like me, I've just worked on one side, then I just want to know what's the right side. So when we make our cardigan, this is the back of our cardigan, like where our back is. I want this part to be on the outside, so it's the nice side out. That's the only reason that we add the stitch marker. I am going to be using the same colour, so this yarn changes colour, so I'm just going to be using that same 1 yarn for the whole project. If you want to change colour now, then you're most welcome to. You're going to finish off your granny square and then join your new colour into the corner of the granny square. Now I'm sticking with this same colour, so all I'm going to do is slip stitch across over to the chain. I've got a chain 2 space. I'm going to slip stitch over to that because I don't want to have too many ends to sew in, so I'm just going to go across to there. And we're ready to work out of our chain 2 space. So now we are going to work the bottom stripes of the cardigan, which is at the back of the cardigan. I'll just say this, if for some reason you have a certain way up that you want your granny square, so let's say you've used yarn that changes colour mid-row or something, and you want that colour to be at the top, you want to position your granny square so that it's the right way, and then find the bottom corner, and we're going to start on that. I hope that didn't confuse you, but if there was for some reason that you need your granny square to be a certain way, this now is going to be the bottom of the cardigan. So this is going to be the bottom edge that we're working across, just to let you know, because you might have a love heart or some picture or something on your granny square that needs to be the right way up. So we're going to chain 2. You could also chain 3 there, or do a alternative to a chain 3. And we're going to turn our work, and we're going to work in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to spin this around. So now if you have a front and a back to your granny square, you're now going to be looking at the back of your granny square. And we are going to work 2 double crochet into this corner space here. So going into that corner space, it's just the corner of the granny square, we're going to work 2 double crochet. And now we're going to work across this edge and just continue on with our granny square as normal. Now if you've done a granny square that has a chain 1 in between your shells, mine don't. I don't have a chain 1 just in between here. If you do, then stick with the pattern that you've been doing. So if you've been doing a chain 1, then do a chain 1. Now you wouldn't know this, but this is actually the first time I have sat down to crochet in front of a camera since February of this year. It is now about a week out from the end of August when I'm filming. So this actually feels really strange. It's at a different angle than I normally crochet, so it does feel strange. So if I start dropping stitches and things, that's why. Hopefully it's like riding a bike. It's just at a different angle than normal. So you're just going to work all the way across, and I'll meet up with you. We're only working on one side of the granny square, so we're only going to go across, and this is our next corner, and we're going to stop here and I'll show you what to do. So pause the video and I'll see you there. So when we get to the end, what we want to do is we want to do the same that we did at the beginning of the row that we're working on. So a good idea to do is to look back at the start, and you can see we have 3 stitches at the beginning of our row. Let's just say that this chain 3 is classed as our first stitch, and it is classed as our first stitch. So now we're going to be working in rows instead of rounds, so we're going to be turning at the end of each one. So what we want to do is make sure that we have the same at the start as we do at the end. So we've got 3 stitches there, so when we come to this end, we want 3 stitches here. Oops. So go into the chain space or the corner space that we have here, and we're going to put in 3 stitches. And because we're working in rows, now we want to work up to the next row. So we can chain 2 and turn. You could also do a chain 3 or an alternate double crochet. So we're going to chain 2 and we're going to turn. I'm going to turn my work around. So now we're working back the other direction. And what we need to do now, because we're doing rows, at the end of each row is going to alternate between 3 stitches at the start of the row, and your next row will have 1 stitch. So that's our 1 stitch. And then we're going to do 3 double crochet in the next space. And you can see here that we have, this is our corner space here, and that's classed as just 1 stitch, because when it pulls up it looks like 1 stitch by itself. So you've got 3 and then you've got 1. So we're going to work all the way across to the other side, and don't go around the corner because I've done that before. We only want to work on this one side. There goes my stitch dropping. And then I'll show you what to do at the other end, but you probably already guessed it. Because we started with 1 stitch, we need to finish with 1 stitch. So the in-between bit's really easy. It's just like a granny square, but it's just on the ends that we have to remember what to do. So I'll see you when we get there. So pause the video and I'll see you in a minute. So I'm just coming up to the end and I've just got to put 2 more stitches in there. That's just my last space. And when we get to the end, because we started with, geez, my words are not coming out today. We started with 1 stitch, so we need to end with 1 stitch, because see here, we've got 3 below. So we know that this one needs to be 1. So in the last stitch here that we've got, we're going to work a double crochet. See if you can get 2 loops when you put your crochet hook through that stitch. It's actually the chain from the previous row, and we're going to work a double crochet, and that ends our 1 stitch. So we're going to start our next row, and you can see that we've finished with 1 stitch there, so we know that the next row is going to start with 3 stitches, right? So we're going to do our chain 2. You can do a chain 3 or an alternate double crochet. I have a quite loose tension, so when I do a chain 3 it seems to be really huge. So, and I can never remember to do them tight, so I just do it 2 2 chains. So we want to do our 3 stitches, because see down here we've got 1. So we want to do 2 double crochet into that space. So we've got our 3 stitches there, and then we continue across and work our way to the other side. And you know what to do when we get to the other side. We finish with 3 stitches. And we're going to repeat this 2-row repeat, so it's starting with 1 and then finishing with 1. The next row starts with 3 and finishes with something's going on, my words. We start with 3 and we finish with 3. So I will just show you how to finish this row just in case you need some help. But then after that you just alternate it, and you can literally make this as long as you want. It just depends on the length that you want your cardigan. So I want mine sort of just below my bottom. I have no idea how long that is. I will measure this piece when I'm finished and I'll put it across the screen. So yeah, when I'm editing I will put a measurement across the screen so you can see how long it is. So pause the video and then I'll meet you when we're at the end of this row. So coming across here you can see that we've got 1 stitch on the row below, and remember, because we started this, I'm actually looking at the beginning of my crochet at the moment just to make sure. We started this row with 3 double crochet, or 3 stitches, and we have to finish with, because we've got 1 below, and we need to finish with 3 double crochet. And like I said, these last 2 rows are our repeat. There is a written pattern on my website if you need to just look back and see what you need to do. And also you could just rewind the video if you need to. And yeah, like I said before, we're going to just keep going until we have the length that we need. Now you have to remember that we are going to be adding the ribbed edge or edging to the bottom of our cardigan. I made mine on my other one, which is not right near me now. From memory, it's about 2 to 3 inches wide. This is totally optional. If you want to add the edging, you can. If you don't want to add the edging, you don't need to. I think it just gives it a nice finish. And also too, the edging can be made any width that you want. So just bear that in mind. You want to make it that much shorter. So I think with the nice chunky ribbing that it looks more cozy. That was sort of the thing I was going for. So between 2 and 3 inches of ribbing makes it look sort of nice and cozy, I think. So yeah, just decide on how thick you want yours and make it that much shorter when we do this section here. So pause the video, and in the next video clip you will see how much of the back that I've done, and I'll, like I said, put the measurements across the screen so you can see. When you get to the length that you want to finish on row 4, and if you look at the pattern, that's the row that starts with a chain 3 and ends with a double crochet in the last stitch. So we need to finish on one of these rows here, but I'll show you that when I finish my length. So as you can see here, I've ended on the row that is 1 double crochet into the last space, and it would have started with 1 double crochet or it would have literally started with a chain 2 or a 3. But it's classed as 1 stitch, and then we would have ended with 1 stitch because that was row 4, and that is what we want to end our repeat on. We are going to cut off our yarn because we are finished with this part of the project. So we're going to leave a couple of inches, and then we're just going to thread that through and pull tight. So now we have that one done, and I don't know if I just said that. I think I did. Mine's 24 inches long from the top of the granny square all the way down to the bottom.